Hi everyone, today I'm presenting my work on foreseeing brain graph evolution over time using deep adversarial network normalizer. This work has been done at Basira Lab by myself, Ahmet Nebli, and supervised by Dr. Islam Rekik. Given a baseline brain graph acquired at T0 time point, how to predict its evolution trajectory over time? There are many studies on image-based brain evolution prediction with sample selection. One of them proposed a brain atlas patch selection method for prediction of MR image trajectory. But this framework does not generalize to non-Euclidean objects, for example brain graphs. A recent study has worked on brain graph prediction, proposing a learning-based atlas-to-atlas similarity estimation to predict brain graph evolution trajectory from a single observation. However, such framework does not preserve the graph topology due to its graph vectorization step. Given a brain graph with unknown evolution trajectory, we think that if we can find the most similar brain graphs with known evolution trajectories, we can predict the evolution trajectory of our brain graph by simple averaging, for example. To do so, we want to normalize each brain graph with respect to a population center, namely a connectional brain template. What we mean by normalization is a sort of a registration or an alignment between an individual brain graph and the population center graph that will allow us to identify what singles out the individual from the population center. By normalization, we aim to learn a low-dimensional embedding of each subject with respect to the population center. We can use the residual distance between the population and each individual embedding to define the similarities between brain graphs. This allows us to select the most similar training graphs to the testing graph at baseline time point. To normalize each brain graph with respect to the CBT, we propose a graph-based generative adversarial network that contains a normalizer and a discriminator network. With geometric deep learning, we preserve the topology of the brain graphs. As an overview, first we learn to normalize the brain graphs with our normalizer. Then we embed brain graphs and the CBT using the normalizer. After that, we generate residuals with the embeddings. We construct the similarity score matrix and select the best similar brain graphs and predict the evolution. Here, we have a close look to our normalizer network. The normalizer learns to encode brain graphs and extract their high-order representative features in a low-dimensional space with respect to the CBT by trying to transform brain graphs into the CBT. After training, normalizer's other purposes, embedding training and testing graphs, and also the CBT to use them for similarity estimation. Here is our normalizer discriminator. As a regularizer for the normalizer network, the discriminator takes as input a concatenation of the normalizer's output and the CBT, and decides whether the normalized graph looks like a real or fake CBT. If the discriminator decides that the normalized graph is real, it means that the brain graph is well normalized. Our normalizer aims to optimize the following loss function. To improve the quality of the normalized graph, we add an L1 loss term to the adversarial loss function to minimize the distance between each normalized graph and its related ground truth graph. As a third step, we use the low-dimensional embeddings learned by the normalizer. We generate residuals between the embedding of each brain graph and the CBT embedding by computing their absolute differences. And finally, since the dot product of two normalized matrices provides the similarity between them, we compute the dot product of each transpose testing residual and training residual and obtain a similarity score matrix. To foresee the brain graph evolution of a testing subject I, we take the top k closest neighbors according to the similarity score matrix and calculate the average of these training brain graphs at the corresponding time point. This gives us the predicted evolution trajectory of the subjects over time. In our experiment, we use 114 subjects from the OASIS-2 longitudinal dataset. Each subject was scanned on 2 or more visits, separated by at least 1 year. We evaluated our framework using threefold cross-validation and generated the CBT using an independent dataset of 23 randomly selected subjects. We benchmarked our framework against 3 comparison methods based on sample selection for prediction. First method uses the original graph features. Second method uses residuals derived from the original graph features and the CBT. And the last one skips the residual generation step of our framework and just uses the CBT normalized embeddings. Here, we can see the mean absolute error of the predictions by our framework and the comparison methods. We performed the experiments for time point t1 from the baseline using a set of varying Ks. We can see that our framework outperformed the comparison methods as the average MAE. Also, we performed the experiments for time point t2, and our framework outperformed the comparison methods as the average and the best MAE. We introduced in this work a brain graph evolution trajectory prediction framework based on a GAN architecture to normalize brain graphs with respect to a connectional brain template. We follow the sample selection task using the residual distance of each sample from a fixed population center. Our framework remarkably boosted prediction accuracy compared to the baseline methods. In our future work, we will evaluate our framework on large-scale connectemic datasets. For more, please visit us at basira-lab.com.